Hey everybody, Mural Joe here. Thanks for tuning in to the next Mural Joe Live. And I want to give a big thanks to Todd, who is the tech guy on this one, just like last time. And this is his studio. This is the Show It Live studio where they do their own show. I'm down in Gilbert, Arizona, just south of the greater Phoenix area. We have beautiful weather right now, this time of year down here in the desert, but you know, an hour north is my town, Flagstaff, at 7,000 feet, where we have lots of snow and ice starting to come in. So I'm thinking that on this painting, I'm going to show you how to do some snow and ice, because just like last time, it's fun to do something seasonal. And I don't have any YouTube videos yet on painting snow and ice. So that'll be a fun thing to have on the channel. I'll start with the sky, just like I always do. Well, I don't know if I always do. You know, on bigger pictures, I paint the foreground first because I don't like to waste time painting over what I already did. But on a little picture, I'll do just like the traditional way where you start with the background and work your way forward. So I'll start putting a sky on here. And, you know, when I paint a sky, I add a lot of violet to the blue. Yeah. So I'm going to add some purple to this. Got some microphone issues there, huh?
Yeah, you're real loud right there. I can see you.
It's okay, because this was going to be really exciting.
There you go.
All right. So you can see how light I'm making this. You know, whenever I start out with the sky in my paintings, I always am careful to make it nice and light, because that's one of the brightest objects in my picture. And if I start out with the dark colored sky, which is easy to do because you're trying to get a nice vivid blue, and blue is one of the least vivid colors as far as paint pigments goes. So I start putting blue in this, it gets darker and darker as I'm adding that blue. You can see up here, this is the blue that I'm using to mix with. You can see how it almost looks like a black surrounded by these lighter colors. And this is where I added white to that blue. So it quickly gets dark as I'm adding color. And in paintings, a lot of the time, you keep adding blue till it gets blue enough, but it's easy to forget right at the beginning of the painting that you're not going to be able to get things dark enough to put more detail in your picture. And so I have to keep this nice and light to give myself plenty of room to add other colors. So I get bluer as I go higher up into the sky, and probably more violet too. Now, a lot of people ask me about the colors that I use. These are just wall paints that I got from the hardware store. These are from Sherwin-Williams, actually. And that purple is from the Home Depot. Maybe you don't have a Home Depot where you are, but different stores have their different colors, their different tints that they put in the paint to color it. So you'll have a base that's designed to hold different pigments. And I just ask them to put one pigment, as much as they can put into a quart or a gallon or whatever it is. And then I just use that for mixing. So this is a violet that comes from Home Depot. I use that because you can see that if I use this violet, it's a lot more of a brilliant purple than if I were to mix the red and the blue paint that I have. That would produce a very dark and dirty colored purple. So this is shaping up to be a pretty good looking sky. I like that real light color as it comes down near my horizon. And it'd probably be fun to put a few clouds in there, so let's do that. I don't want to be too fancy on the clouds this time. So we'll put some white. Here. Now, my brush is a little bit dirty, so you can see this kind of turn to a gray. And that'd be great for the shadow color of the cloud. But I'm going to pull out a cleaner brush to do the rest of the cloud. so that I get a nice bright white. Here we go. Put this big old brush on there. Now to do the shadow color on a cloud, I almost always just mix red with the blue that I used in my sky. And that red and blue, like I said, makes kind of a dirty colored purple, a real dark purple, but mixed with white, it makes a really good shadow color. So here you can see I've got my blue that I used in the sky, then I'll take a little bit of red, and I have 5 different colors on the table down here that you can't see, but they're just these primaries that I put on this rainbow up the tops. Makes it easier for me to explain things if I have that up there. So this is just red and blue, making the shadow color on this cloud. And I'll put it on the underside of this guy right here. Maybe I'll do another one.
Hey Joe, you want to show those colors?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so this is a typical set of primaries that I use. And these are Sherwin-Williams. The blue comes from Sherwin-Williams. The yellow does, the red does. These are their Duration products. That is an interior acrylic wall paint. And I just especially like it because of the strength of these pigments that come from the factory. This is a black. I don't remember where I got it. I get it from different places, you know, but I always stick with, it's the same thing. It's an interior acrylic, and it's a factory tinted black because, you know, those tend to be darker. And then this white also is the high reflective white, it's called, and that's also from Sherwin-Williams. So this is kind of a commercial for Sherwin-Williams right now, but it's interior acrylic paint. All kinds of companies make them, and I think they all work. Okay. Another cloud. Here, let's put one. Clouds that are higher up in the sky are not going to be stretched out as skinny like the ones that are getting flattened from the perspective. So if you're looking straight up at a cloud, you know, if it's shaped like a pancake, which sometimes clouds are kind of shaped like that, you look up at it and it's very round, but you look out at it and it's very flat. So there's almost always clouds above your head that have more of a round shape than the clouds that are out toward the horizon. So I'll put a cloud up here that's a little more roundish. Yeah. You know, something I like to do that's fun is pull out a clean brush, and I'm choosing which brush to use here. Make sure there's some water on it. I always keep towels handy. And when I put white on, I can really soften it. I can soften that edge with a clean brush, especially if the layer underneath is all the way dry, which this one isn't, so it's not going to do as good, but it's still okay. So you can see that I get a real soft blend, if that's the kind of cloud that I'm trying to make with real soft edges. If I don't want the real hard edges on it, you know, I can just use a clean brush and come over it. Just let the very tip of the brush kind of grab that white edge and soften it. Like this.
So Joe, we have some people joining us from Atlanta, Chicago, London, India, Southern California,
Nice.
Boise, and
all the way from India.
The first question that we
Nice.
have is, are you going to show us how to make those clouds? Is there a how-to video on clouds?
Yes, definitely. I have a very thorough description of how to make this and other kinds of clouds on this video that I'm making right now. That's in my studio back in Flagstaff. And it'll be much easier to understand when I take some time to explain it with some bigger models. But, you know, it is the same kind of thing. Like I always say, bigger picture just means bigger brush. It's not always a real overwhelming task to take a small picture and make it big. It doesn't have to be anyway. All right, what else can I put in this sky to make it interesting? Maybe a mountain would be cool. So let's make a mountain. And this mountain's going to be covered with snow. I want to make a snowy scene. So put some blue on there. Now, when something is really distant in a landscape, it takes on the color of the atmosphere. So whatever that color is in the sky, that is going to be layered over it. I mean, there could be a few miles of this atmosphere between you and that distant object. So if this mountain has a lot of dark colored rocks, but all that blue atmosphere is in between, then it's going to be somewhere in between that dark color and the blue atmosphere. Now I'm going to use a darker color just so you can see it. If it was just a complete white snowy mountain, then it might just be white, and then I wouldn't even really be able to see much of it in my picture. So for the sake of making a mountain that we can really see, that'll look more dramatic and fun, I'm just going to use maybe the same color as my cloud shadow to start out with, and then I'll add some highlights to it. So I added a little bit of red to get this kind of grayish purple, and then I'll add white, and I'll just start building the peak of a mountain going up here. I'm thinking that I'm going to make the sun coming from over here, maybe coming down in an angle like this. I don't always decide that ahead of time. You know, it takes me a little bit. I like to think of it as I go inside. Okay, so before I add a bunch of details on this mountain, I'm going to bring it down and add some atmosphere down here. It'll look like a hazy, kind of a foggy day if I add some white down here. So at the beginning of a painting like this, a lot of the time, I'm just laying out general colors that I might end up covering over. Maybe I won't like the way this looks in a few minutes and change it, but it helps me to visualize. You know, I just need to give myself something to look at before I get too worried about all the little details.
And Joe, that cloud video, is that something that will be on the Learn.Mural Joe, or is that like a
both?
Okay.
Both, definitely. You know, I always put a short version of the videos that I sell. I like to always put a short version that's free on YouTube that packs all of what I think is the most important information, so that if you aren't in the market to buy something, you still get what I think is the best information. And if you have talent, you can take that and really hopefully do great things with it. But for those who want to pay for the extra explanation demonstrating the techniques, I make that available too. So I try to have a good balance between both.
Will that video be included with the whole collection, like the people have bought that, or?
It's in the all video bundle. Right now I sell a bundle that's everything. I'll probably always have an option on there to have the whole bundle, but I don't know, that'll be hard for me to promise to give it for free to everybody that's bought previous videos. We'll see. I always try to make as good and affordable deals as I can, but we'll see what I can do.
We have somebody here from Sedona, Arizona, which is
nice. Not too far away.
Do you know Diana Sparks? You met her?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know Diane. Hey Diane. I'm sorry that I don't remember that name. If I'm supposed to remember, please forgive me.
Yeah.
But thank you for tuning in. That's really exciting to have Sedona tuning in.
So the first question they have is, will you apply the same technique for sunset clouds with color modification?
Yep, I would. You know, there's so much the different kinds of clouds that you can do, and you can add a lot of different colors to the exact same techniques, putting the shapes together. I'm thinking down here, since this is still drying, I'm going to come down here and maybe try to plan out the rest of my scene. This is going to be a snowy scene, and so I'm going to have some real bright snow coming into the foreground here. So to start out with, now you've heard it said probably that things get lighter as they get further away. And I disagree with that. I don't always find that things get lighter. I find that they get more the color of the sky as they get further away. So if I'm starting with bright white snow in the foreground, but there's some fog in the air, or if it's a hazy day, you know, then things will get a little bit darker and more shadowed as they get further away. So you can see here that I get a little bit darker before it gets to that mountain back there. All right, let's put some bright color in there. Yeah, I think that'll be good. And here's something fun with clouds. You know, now that that paint's starting to dry, you can add some extra perspective to clouds by just coming down underneath a cloud that's already painted. I have my shadow color down here, and I can just add some of the white again, like this. I'll just bring that over to this mountain. I'm going to go back to shadow color. Looks like I might have a little bit still available up here. Or I can just grab this. This is shadow color. And I can revolve back and forth between white and shadow color. Now pure white again. And you see I make this hard edge between the shadow and the white, and then I blend it softly down into the shadow color. And when you get far enough away on the horizon, you don't really even need the shadow color. It's just the bright white that causes the look of clouds dropping down in perspective. Put some bright white in here. Just by leaving the top edge of these stripes a hard edge and then blending them downward, it creates perspective of clouds behind clouds. You put one kind of peeking out from behind this mountain here. So now I can probably start putting some snow on that mountain. I think it's dry enough. White, when you're working with white, it's good to know that it is the most easily influenced by other colors. It's real weak, you know. So if you have something that's 90% white and just 10% of another color, that 10% of colors is going to look like half of the mix when it comes to white. So I like to always, you know, let things dry a little before I start working too much with white. So now I'm going to build the shape of this. Now, this is probably a good time to show what a cool effect it can be to add a little bit of orange color to the white so that it has a real brilliant contrast with the bluish shadow color. So I'll come up here and start just making some random shapes. And oh yeah, and I said I'd add orange. So here, let's make a little bit of orange up in here. Now a little bit goes a really long way, so I'm going to rinse out my brush and just barely dab into that. Red and yellow mix there. I just want the tiniest bit of that. Now if I do it to the snow, I should probably also do it to the clouds. Sometimes all by itself, just these two colors, a slightly orange shade of white, which just, you know, you could also just call it a light peach, next to a blue automatically just looks like light and shadow on snow, just because that's so commonly what you see when you look outside at the snow. The blue shadow comes from the sky. You know, snow is very reflective, and so it's going to reflect the color of the sky. What you call a shadow is actually just a darker bluer light hitting the other side. So here we'll put this snow coming down here. So now you can see having this bright kind of orangey glow in the white, it's kind of making my clouds look odd. So I'm going to want to make sure I put that same color over here in the clouds. So it'll be kind of a late in the day kind of a scene. So let that color get in there. we go. Now, I think what would be cool is a little bit darker shadow color. So I kind of have the shape laid out, but I can enhance it by, let's go down here to mix my color. Now I'm going to make another mix of this violet. And this is going to be darker than what's on there. So where I want edges to look like they're more vertical, I'm going to put the darker color in there. So they're not pointing straight up at the sky. You know, so these are coming down here. Put some darker colors in there. There, now it looks like some little rocks jutting up in this mountain. All right, then we have
Joe. The questions I have right now, for you so far, as you continue to go, is the color of the sky ultramarine or a cyan blue?
You know, I never was very familiar with those. You know, I know that in tubes of paint you have all the different colors, but to me, all I see is a blue that's more violet or a blue that's more turquoise. It's just one or the other, or a blue that is less saturated and more gray. I always just go for the brightest blue I can find. But when it comes to wall paint, it's really simple because they just have one blue at the store that they use to tint everything. And this blue from Sherwin-Williams is more on the turquoise side. So if you take whatever blue you have in a tube and you smear it over some white and it looks more on the turquoise side, that's the kind of blue that I'm using right now. But by the time you mix it with these other colors, I would use any of those blues and I would get the same results. You know, I am never too concerned about small differences in shade because I do so much mixing that it changes it anyway. So anywhere that I change from this darker shadow and then change over to this light is going to look like it's going to start building shapes, you know. And the darker color is going to look like it's facing this way. The light color faces this way. So this will end up looking like a valley here. If I make a dark color on this side, then it gets bright as it comes over here. You can make a bunch of different shapes in there.
The other question that we got is, when it comes time, can you put a snowy castle in the mid-ground?
That would be cool. We'll see.
Okay. There's another request for a snowy ice castle, Narnia style.
Wow.
Yeah.
That might take a while. I have to save that for another video. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see.
Another one.
Let's put some dark.
If these clouds were above an ocean scene, predominantly blue, would you paint them differently than if they were above a fall tree scene? Would the clouds reflect the colors of the foreground?
Okay. Everything reflects everything. So probably, if I understand the question correctly, the answer is yes. Clouds would reflect those colors. Just give me a second here. It's hot down here in the Phoenix area. You know, we got cold temperatures up on the mountains. I'm down here moving around, working in a hotter temperature than I'm used to. You know, I was driving across the Utah desert, going to do a job up in Utah, and I remember looking up at the clouds and being amazed that I could see the red of the desert sand on the underside of those clouds. Everything reflects everything. So you'll see the colors of surrounding objects on every object if you really looked close enough. All right, so I've got a mountain there. I don't want to spend forever on this background mountain. We want to do something else interesting in this picture.
Is there a reason that you choose house paint over acrylic?
Well, right now, just because it's fast. You know, the tubes are thicker, and in the end, they leave a nicer look on the picture with nicer texture. This stuff shrinks a lot, and so sometimes you don't get that nice look of the crisscross brush texture as well. But it's just so fast. You know, it's really nice for that reason. All right, I'm thinking we need a cool foreground object in here. So how about a rock? Yeah, let's make a brown. Red, yellow, and black always make a nice brown.
Captain Hook is requesting a mermaid, but you know, you've already done a mermaid on the live show, so
Yeah, awesome. A mermaid. It's a good request. You know, one of these days I should do a mermaid. It's not the first request.
How would moonlight reflection differ from sunlight reflecting off of things, like snow, for example?
You would just really have lower contrast and probably not put the orange in the white. I think that if you just darkened everything down, used a real dark blue, and then just stuck with the pure white, because the light coming off the moon doesn't produce all of those colors that the sunlight does when it strikes through all that atmosphere. All right, so this is kind of like that question about the clouds, you know, but this is a rock, but I think if I understand, it might apply the same. So this rock, I can make it look like it's wrapping around into this picture by adding bluer colors to this end. So wherever I put this lighter bluer color, it's going to look like edges of this rock wrapping around into this picture. So here, I could put an edge facing up toward the sky. And then where it comes right toward me, that's where I have my darkest and brownest colors that I want to just be the color of my rock. See right here.
What kind of paint finish are you using?
This would be a satin. You know, I don't like to use semi-gloss. It's just so shiny, and it just reminds me of a cheap apartment when I look at that shiny texture. And flat kind of kills the colors. The chalkiness of it kills the colors of the paint. So I use satin. The shininess of it, I think, is a good compromise. All right, I want this rock here because I want to maybe make some icicles hanging off of that. Do something that I can put icicles on. Okay. So now in here, I'm making the underside of this rock coming across, and we're going to I want some dark colors in here. Okay. Maybe we'll try to make this some water right here. Water is always nice to have in a picture, except that it would be ice. Okay. So whenever I do water or ice, whatever this is, if I want it to look nice and transparent, all I want to do is make the look of a reflection on it. And reflection is literally just the color that you want to be underneath combined with the color that would be reflecting off of it. So in this case, I'm thinking that it's just got a muddy color underneath, and then the top is reflecting the blue sky on it. So I'll just use a similar color. Snowy scenes always kind of have this one color look to them, you know, they're never real, not as diverse in the colors. Maybe we'll make like a little stream coming across here. Yeah, that would be cool. You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to turn this into some other streams, and this will be fun. Kind of make them interconnected. So if I wanted to make some little streams going back or little frozen pieces of a creek, I got to make sure I get really skinny as it goes back. I don't want to make anything real wide as it's coming back this way, unless it's coming straight toward me. That would be the only thing that would be very wide. You know, so if something's kind of connecting these two together, maybe that would be wider. Make it look like some broken patches of snow, maybe some water showing through. And I'll put some shading on that too. Then we could use some reflection of the mountain there. Ice typically obscures the image a lot, so I'm not going to try to make a perfect reflection of this mountain. Now, here's something that I think really fools people a lot. When you're doing reflection on water, remember that the reflection is the upside down image, and the middle point between the two is the horizon, not the edge of the water. So if I flip this mountain upside down, I want to start from here where the horizon is. So I might have pulled this down a little bit too far, this one, but that's okay because the ice would kind of distort the image anyway. So we'll just pull some white colors down here, do like Bob Ross would do. Like this. And maybe just fan it with my brush here to blend it in. Here now I have some reflection to help this look like a watery surface here. Okay. Now when you're shading snow, let's get a brush, let's get a cleaner one. I want to put some snow in the foreground here. To make snow look like snow, you want to just use blue shadows. So just like I did on the mountain, but these are closer. And so maybe I'll make them a little bit less gray, really make them stand out. So I'll use this bright white and I'll add a little bit of the orange. And up here, let's make a little bit more of that orange. There we go. It's probably more than I want right there.
One person said, let's create a happy little rock right there.
Nice.
And that little rock is looking a little lonely. Let's give him a friend. I like that. And Rush Theory said, Bob Ross is the reason I started painting, and Mural Joe is the reason I now do murals. Nice.
That's awesome. Well, Bob Ross is probably one of the reasons that I paint as well. He's definitely one of my role models. I think he cared more about people than he did his paintings, and that's what made him great.
Now, would you use oil paint to do this size, and would it have the same effect?
Oh yeah. Oil, you know, you can do better blending. You can take more time to perfect things. Oil is probably the better tool for an artist. It just takes more time, and I couldn't just let a layer dry and then quickly come back over it with those details. Not as quickly. You can add dryers to it to make it dry faster. And I think I will be using some oils, you know, here soon to produce some paintings that I'm going to work on over the winter. But for this purpose, you know, my main reason for using the water base is just because of how fast it is. All right, so you can see how that little bit of orange really makes this pop out. So then when I add the blue shadows, that's also going to have a nice contrast to it. So let's do that. Let's take some blue right here, and maybe this time I'll use a little bit of the violet. That might be too much. I got a ton of that. Put a shadow right here. Everywhere I want this snow to look like it's bending away from my light source that's shining this way, I just shadow it with this blue. Right there, maybe there's some here above this a little bit. Let's put a bunch of snow up in here. I want to put a big patch of snow up on top of this rock. Then I just grab my blue like I did. If I use the blue and get that turquoise look, I don't think that looks as good. I always want to have that little bit of red or violet in it, so that's more of a violet blue. I got too much shadow on this one down here, so I'll come back with white. Adjust that one. See that little bit of blue on there? Looks like a big clump of snow on there. Put some of the bright white. Get some of my orange up in here so I can add that orange glow to this bright color. I always end up adding too much of that. Let's see, get a little bit on that edge. Now, right here, I was trying to make a dark background because I wanted to do something fun with some icicles, but maybe I can do it another way. Someone said, you know, this rock needed a friend, so we should put something to put icicles hanging off of on this guy.
One guitar guy asked if you could put a polar bear on that rock.
That'd be cool. I don't think we have time. That would be cool. Oh, whoops. I got the orange. I meant to grab this blue right here. I do that all the time. I get confused what colors I'm working with. All right, then grab my bright white, throw it on here. All right, then if I want this rock to look, you know, it has this kind of a flat look to it. So if I just put maybe a light color on the bottom of this rock, then it'll look a lot more like it's wrapping under and reflecting that light snow that's behind it. So watch, I'll just take a real kind of a light gray. Like this. Put a lighter color here. You wouldn't think that you would shade the underside of something with a lighter color, but I do that a lot if there's bright colors underneath it. Then, all right. And then, you know, to me, this kind of looks like, this is kind of looking like it's in the picture. I'm having a hard time getting separation between this foreground object and this right here. So I'm not sure what to do about that right now. So I'm just going to do something different until I think of a fix. But I want to show you how to do shadows on like some trees or something. That'll be fun. So let's put some trees in this picture. Maybe we have some trees going up like this. Gabriel
asks, where do you get the idea for your paintings from? Do you make them up, or do you look at a reference before? Or?
Oh yeah, I'm just imagining as I go. Sometimes I think that's a lot more obvious than other times. But I just like to make it up as I go. For me, the thrill is in creating something, you know.
How do you make a rock look rocky? Like, what technique do you use?
Well, you know, my process for making rocks is I don't always do it with the paintbrush, but what I'm thinking is start with something that it's really easy to understand, like a circle, and then start cutting areas off of it. And so I'll think of a basic geometric shape and then start cutting sections off and then painting that resulting shape. And I'll maybe cut off a large and then a medium and then a small shape so that I end up with something that's got like 3 different sides on it. Something that works really good in pictures about things in 3s. All right, we're doing some tree trunks in here.
Diana from Sedona is asking, do you have any multiple day seminars planned in the future?
There's none on the calendar right now, but I will put some together. We got a new baby at the house right now, and it's hard to schedule anything, but it is definitely something that I'm excited about doing more of. The last one was super fun, went well, and I'm sure we'll be doing it again. I'll definitely keep everybody posted that's on the mailing list.
How would you get your mailing list?
You can go to muraljoe.com down there in the bottom right corner on my website at muraljoe.com. You can click on that link to take you to the mailing list. And anytime you purchase anything, it automatically prompts you, asks you if you want to be on the list too. So now I'm going to make shadows of these trees coming across the snow. And to make these shadows, I'm using that same kind of a dark blue violet kind of a color, mostly blue. Right now I'm going to be real conscious of a vanishing point as I'm doing this. So I want to make sure that these are going to vanish to some point that's back here on the horizon. And that horizon could be way over here off of the picture too. And it would still look good, you know, as long as these shadows are all parallel with each other and would be connecting to a point somewhere back there.
Kate Mix says that the multiple day seminar was amazing. Do you remember Kate?
Oh yeah. Kate did a great job there. She's had some pretty awesome ocean scene painting going.
And is your house covered with a bunch of paintings?
Oh man, I wish it was. But you know, a lot of the time I just don't value my paintings because I think, oh, I'm going to paint something better here soon. You know, I'm going to paint something else that I don't want to hang that. And then a lot of the time it's for a client, and so I don't keep it for that reason. It's always something, you know. But my kids don't have much of my work. They will though.
I think I have more Mural Joe paintings in my house than you probably do.
Yeah, you probably have more than I do, for sure. Yeah. All right, so now I've got some shadows, and the only reason they look like shadows is because they have that blue color to them. It's not too dark, you know, but it has that blue color. And now maybe I want to put something that I wanted to put some icicles hanging off of something. So later I can put some little branches and details on these guys. But for now, what I think will be cool for the picture is to put in my icicles. You know what I think I'm going to do is see if I can get away with just bringing this blue up so that this rock looks like I want it to look like it's an overhang. And so far I kind of failed at that. So let's see if this will fix it. There we go. We'll bring this watercolor up underneath that. Yeah, this will be fun. I think this will be better. Yeah, let's put some shadows on the snow while we're at it. You know, so much of what I do is trial and error. You know, I talk a lot like I really know what I'm doing, but a lot of the time I have a real good theory and I'm putting it to the test as I go.
Will you add ripples in the water, or is it going to be just frozen?
Well, I was kind of thinking this would be more frozen ice, and ripples is something that'll take a while to produce. So I want to make some good progress on the painting. So I won't have time to do ripples on this one.
Do you find it hard to paint small painting after doing murals?
There are certain things that are challenging about it. I'm used to planning out things on a big scale, and most of the time I don't have to be as strategic about dry time, but on a little one, I'll be ready to put things on, but the paint won't be dry yet, and so my planning is off. So there are little things that are different, but I find little paintings to be way lower on stress level because, it takes a few seconds to just do the whole thing over again, any section of it. Now, I think that looks better with that real bluish shadow where the snow is. I like the way that looks. Now, I want to show you how to do icicles coming down. So here's the thing about ice or water. It's the same. I've explained this before, that light, when it strikes through, when it transitions from the air to a different substance, that's where it reflects. So whether it's coming out of it or it's going into the ice, it's going to reflect. So light will actually reflect off of the inside of an icicle. So I can make the edges white. There's all kinds of white in my picture. So I can just make the edges of the icicles white. And what that white represents is not the outside edges of it reflecting what's around, but the inside edges reflecting it. So down here, let's just make a zigzag line coming down, for instance, like this. All right, we'll make another one here. And if it's real crystal clear ice, then you'll see what's behind it. And you'll see the lightest color right there on the edge. And then I'll blend it into the middle so that you see that background color in the middle. And maybe it has some ridges going across that are reflecting. But just because it has the bright edge and then has that gradient going into it, it's going to look like ice. Okay, so I'll do a couple more like that here. I did a lot of this on that beer cave that I painted with that big old Yeti. I had a real good time with that job. It was a fun one. All right, another icicle here, and we'll make those little ridges across. More of these guys. I think it'd be cool if this looks like it's piling up, Make a big old mess of ice right here. Just making a big pile. Like this. And then, so then if you think about this, if these inside edges of the ice are reflecting whatever's there, then they're going to have dark reflections where they're pointing up at the rock. So I can take my dark color that this rock was. How am I going to make that? With some black, and probably just black and white will be good. That'll probably be good. black and white will make something that looks brown when there's this much blue around. All right, so then right here on the edges of these icicles, wherever they're kind of pointing up toward the rock, that's where I'll put this darker color. This. Now, wherever light strikes through water or ice or another surface, wherever it strikes through right at 90 degrees, then that's the least amount of reflection. So that's why you see the other side of these. That's why you make a gradient, and as it comes to the middle, you see what's behind those. That's why it has that effect. So we put a few icicles down there. And how about put some hanging off of the edge of the sky? Put some dark colors in the middle just so that we can see that. Yeah.
I had a question about, do you paint portraits ever, like skin tones? And
only a small number of times I've done that, you know, and definitely the more recent ones have been better. I did one of a native friend of mine, Navajo. That one I thought came out real good. But I don't make a habit out of that. You know, portraits is a bit on the tedious side for my liking. But I do want to do a lesson on painting skin tone. That would be a good one. Something I'll probably do a lot more of in the future as the situation calls for it. You know, I just haven't had a lot of demand for it with all of the... Right now, people really like me for the landscapes more. So I end up doing a lot more of that.
How do you get most of your mural jobs?
It's really just word of mouth. You know, I spent enough time in a small town and people know, but now I have a good amount of traffic online, and that comes from having a YouTube channel that gets hit a lot. And so when people Google, you know, muralist in Arizona, it comes up pretty quick. More now than ever before. I get asked to do out of town jobs, but I don't love doing that. Yeah, like this, see? Little icicles coming down. Maybe we'll make a little bit of snow, just kind of ramping out in the front of this picture. We'll put the shadow on the right side. This. A little bit of red and blue. Then put the bright white on the left side. Just rinse out the brush. Get my bright white. All right, we're probably getting pretty close to time to wrap this up. This, put some ice. A lot of the time, just having blue and white mixed together just creates its own shapes in a picture like this. Let's put some shadows where those icicles are. It'll be fun. Try to make a shadow color here. Just real light shadows, because the light comes through those things. There we go. Now these trees could use some branches, huh? I think that'd be good. So what should I do? The snow first or branches first? I think the snow is the easiest, so I'm just going to do that first. So we'll do white on here. Then we'll get the shadow color. I'll just mix a batch of shadow color down here. The blue and the purple. Like this. Put some in here. I don't want to put too much in front of my tree right there. Here we go. It's kind of fun to do things in more of an impressionistic style when I'm used to doing lots of detail, you know.
Someone asked if we follow along and make a painting we're proud of. Can you sell it, or is that plagiarism?
Okay, wait, say that again to me.
So if they're following along with what you're doing and
oh, that's not plagiarism. No. I don't think so. It'd be, you know, you'd be hard pressed to ever prove that it was stealing anybody's design, you know. It's a picture of nature. That'd be like saying, to me, in my opinion, that'd be like saying two people can't photograph the same spot. That's why I just don't think that it would apply. And to me, it's a high compliment if someone paints a picture that I paint. I always love it. If I see other stuff out there that looks like somebody used mine as a model.
Did you ever attend an art university or something like that?
No, all my knowledge is research. You know, I spend a ridiculous amount of time thinking and studying colors and light. You know, it's something that I'm just fascinated by and just love. So, you know, when other kids were outside doing things that normal kids do, I was inside drawing pictures. I still do tons of research on my own time. I think I would risk being ridiculed if I opened up and talked about everything that I theorize and think about. I have lots of theories about light and color, things that I'm still studying, trying to figure out.
You get enough criticism from me that you don't.
Oh yeah, Todd's the worst. Todd, oh geez. Yeah. Of course, you were the one that insisted that I couldn't run a mile in 4 minutes. And he was right. But it was worth challenging.
What's the furthest you've traveled or would travel for a mural job? They want to say we're not here in Kansas, so.
Oh, I'd go to Kansas, but you know the hard thing is timing and money. You know, I get more and more expensive as time goes on because I just can't justify it for lower prices. There's other things that I'm committed to in my hometown, and I would be hanged if other painters found out that I was going around doing work for cheap, you know. So it's hard for me to price things where people want them to be these days. Most of the time people say, hey, well, you travel and do a mural for $500. You know, to go 2 states away. You know, it's a hard thing. Impossible, actually. All right, so now I've got little puffy bits of snow on there. And, you know, we have this mountain in the back. I totally went over my cloud again. Why do I always do that? I think the last thing that this needs is maybe some hills, and then some mid-ground hills, to finish it off. So here, let's put some hills here. A little bit of red on here.
Someone just asked if I run a mile in 4 minutes, can I have that painting?
No. I think.
How do you get this painting? What's the process on that?
Oh, yeah. We're going to give away the painting. Yes. Okay. When I'm done painting this, I'm going to give instructions. Okay. It's going to be a race. It will be a race. Not a track race, but we will have a race for the right answer. There, we'll make a little hill. I'm going to see if I can work through a couple little details when this show's over on this to make it a little bit extra good for whoever wins this painting. Trying to finish up some edges on it. Make some little drifts in the background here. There's my snow scene. I still think it needs something else. Something like a, what I think would be cool? I'll tell you what would be cool.
Polar bear.
Polar bear. It needs a polar bear. Except that would really conflict with the trees. I don't think you'd have those pines with the polar bear. So that's my out for the polar bear for now.
Definitely a mermaid then?
You could do a mermaid if it was an ice mermaid.
A frozen mermaid.
Yeah, I think we could do that. That might be cool. How much time do we have? How much time are we at?
We just crossed an hour.
Okay, well, we should start wrapping this up soon. So now I'm using red and blue without adding white to make a real dark color here. So this will be like a silhouette of a tree branch.
Is that a suggestion of a moose or an eagle?
Yeah, an animal would be nice. I should put something in here.
Are you naming this painting Cotton Candy Land?
That is a very good name. One of the best I've heard. I don't know. I'll name it whatever the majority votes it should be named. We'll name it that. Make some branches going up right here. Okay, and then this just needs some snow on it. I'll put a little bit of a backlight on the underside of this branch, just like I did with that rock. That rock where it didn't actually, remember how I did that thing with the rock and it didn't actually accomplish what I wanted it to? It'll work with this branch. Right there, and then we'll put some snow on that guy. You have any of our peach left? Yeah, we do. Then a little bit of the blue shadow color, and then that branch right there will be good to go.
Shillett requested that you put Darth Vader into this picture. I mean,
what?
It would be pretty appropriate, you know?
Yeah. Can't go wrong with Darth Vader, I guess.
Yeah.
When is that ever not cool? Boy, we're going to need to budget a few more hours for these shows.
The one where you added a shark eating a dolphin with a mermaid swimming away, that one took couple hours.
Yeah.
No, it was only an hour and a half.
You know what I think it'd be cool? You know, I'm liking the mermaid idea more and more.
But you're gonna give this away. You want to do a mermaid?
I guess I should listen to the voice of reason over there.
No, polar bear
Don't.
or a walrus. You said polar bear doesn't fit in there. Moose,
Yeah.
eagle, a pink Sauron was another one. Yeti land. Oh, Yeti.
A Yeti is a good idea.
I mean, you're a Bigfoot theorist.
Yeah. I believe in Bigfoot for sure.
So
Yeah. Okay.
you might want to just make him very distant, like
What?
on the mountain, off in the corner. Or
Well,
something.
that just got boring.
No, maybe not too far on the mountain. Maybe just like on that hill.
I want to define my mountain here. This edge. I like the edge of the mountain. All right. It needs some sign of life in it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's put a little Bigfoot. All right. Can you zoom the camera in? Here.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Gotta make sure that we see this Bigfoot here.
Where are you
So we'll just shadow color. We'll start with shadow color. Red, blue, white. I like the idea of a Yeti. That makes any picture cooler automatically in my book. Okay. All right. All right, so we'll put his leg going down right here. Right here. Needs to be a little bit darker.
Big Yeti.
Oh yeah, they're big, dude. They're like 12 feet. These things are big. I love watching. I used to like watching Finding Bigfoot, mostly just to make fun of their methods. Okay, but I love how they always say statements about Bigfoot that are so matter of fact. Now, Bigfoot love to come wherever they hear the sounds of people having a good time. They say all these statistics like they're heavily researched. I mean, maybe it's true. It just sounded like a lot of claim. However, let me remind you, I am a believer in Bigfoot. All right, just kind of looking back right here, just like in that old video.
That's not a hint of Bigfoot. That's Bigfoot right there.
Yeah, that's Bigfoot. Yeah, I mean, it's not the best Bigfoot that I ever drew. Let's make it better. Yeah. It's getting bigger. They have long arms. Maybe I didn't choose the right brush for this. Maybe I should give it another go. We'll do another Bigfoot. We'll do another one. That one came out bad, so I just can't keep it. We won't. Okay, this is how you win this painting. All right. You got to be the first to leave the comment. How many do we have online? I want to know how good the odds are.
65.
Okay, we got 65.
66.
Okay. I want to mail this picture to whoever. But if you're out of the country, you have to pay for the shipping to go overseas. All right. So make sure you leave a comment, because even if you're not the first, if someone says, oh, I actually don't want to pay for the shipping to go out, then maybe you'll be next in line. All right. You got to leave the answer to this question. At what angle does red light have to pass through the surface of water in order to have zero change in its direction? All right? At what angle does red light have to pass through the surface of water in order to have zero change in its direction? You gotta tell me what the first. Yeah, you got 3 legs. That's awesome. Yeah. No, that's not a leg.
We don't have the answer yet. Still waiting for someone to chime in.
I worded that tricky. It was a trick question.
What angle? 45 degrees?
Nope. Not 45 degrees.
0.
Not 0 degrees. That would be most reflection possible. Most angle change possible.
Straight down.
Straight down. That is right. But what angle is it? I'm looking for a number.
90.
Yes. Who said that?
The first 90 that we have in chat is actually Kate Mix.
What? Kate, you're too lucky. All right. It's Kate's. She won fair and square. I'm going to mail this to Kate.
Although we did have a straight down. But...
And that is correct. Was it straight down before Kate's?
Is the one right before Kate. So.
Oh, but the thing is with straight down is that does not specify the angle that it would be going through the surface, because the water could be on a tilt, it could be a wave. There's a lot of different things, you know. Straight down is not a specific angle. I'm sorry. That is, you know, I know what you meant, and my conscience says that you're correct, but Kate had the more correct answer.
You're going for more correct.
Yeah.
You're looking for a number there. So.
Yep, the number wins it.
All right.
All right, I'm going to redo the Yeti. Okay. We better just stop there. I failed on the Yeti, and I don't want to eat up a whole bunch more video time doing a boring little stick man. So we'll save it for another. Maybe I can do an iced over mermaid and a Yeti and a polar bear and a painting in the future. Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to put some finishing touches on this. I really appreciate you guys watching through this.
Maybe you should ask Kate Mix does she want a Yeti in her painting? No.
Yeah, you're right. We should do that. We'll ask. We'll communicate. We'll communicate by email.
No, she's right here. She'll tell you.
All right, Kate. Do you want a Yeti in the painting? You say what you want in the painting. Yeah.
It'll take a second for her to get it.
Todd's the boss. Todd's running the show here. I think I need to put some more little tree branches in there. Could put like a polar bear just kind of resting there on that ice. That'd be good.
Kate Mix says no.
No Yeti.
No Yeti.
Oh, she's heard enough.
Her beautiful painting. Nope.
She's heard enough. She's heard enough Yeti stories up there in Idaho. She's all done. Okay. It was a fun thought. It would have stuck if I would have done it well that first time, but it had 3 legs.
It's a 3-legged Yeti. I mean, it's made up, so you just never know. What is it really?
That's the fun of the live show, is that I don't get to pretend that I don't make mistakes and have error in my pictures. You get to watch me make them. All right. Well, I'm going to send this off to Kate. Hopefully we'll be able to do another one in the near future. So thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.